Hi, my name is Brianna Urbina. We're here at Middletown High School with the two candidates for Orange County Executive. On the farther right over here, we have the candidate from the Green Party, Neil Hickok, and closer to me, we have the Democratic candidate, Michael Sussman. The major question we had at hand with 65 kids in the room yesterday was, who wants to stay here in Orange County after they graduate? And a surprising 0 want to stay here. The question we have for you is, what can you do to make Orange County a more attractive place for young people to stay?
Okay.
Would you like to speak first?
Sure. First of all, I wanted to thank the school, Mr. Isaacs, and your entire class for having us here, and tell you that I'm actually very dismayed by your collective answer. And I'm a little surprised. The reason I'm a little surprised is because the quality of life in our county in many ways is really rather good. However, for young people, there's very, very little to do. I know that there are very few places for you to go. The sports activities continue to a certain age, and then unless you're on teams at school, there's nothing for you to really do there. Maybe play some ball with your friends as I did when I was a kid. Culturally, we have very few things to do, very few museums, very few places where groups come and play. One of the things that I've proposed is that we get a civic center in Orange County. I think a civic center would help greatly as a community place where people would have things to do, important acts to go to, music, art, and the like. We don't seem to have any center in the county for culture. We need that sort of facility. I also feel very strongly that we have 35 county parks. Most people, when I ask them as I travel around the county, how many parks do we have? Most people say 3, 2, 4. People don't have any idea that we have this large number of parks, and they certainly have no idea what's available in these parks. We need to have nature camps in the parks for young people where you can learn during the summer and also work with others. We don't have anything going on like that in the county, and I think we need to use our resources in that way. The other thing we need to do, though, is to make known to you the kind of employment opportunities which do exist, and to encourage businesses, companies to make use of you, even before you're at the stage where you're going off to college. I see no reason why 16 and 17-year-old kids can't be involved. I have a law office in Goshen. We have plenty of things that you could do, orienting yourselves towards that profession, and just learning what it's like after school to come somewhere and work. We have many businesses in the county, and those businesses should be opening themselves up to you so you get oriented to the world in a different way. Those are some of my thoughts. I'm very, very encouraged to be here and with the large number of you here, but I also think it's very important for you to come, keep an open mind. You know, the grass is always greener. When I was your age, I certainly didn't want to go back to where I went to high school, and I didn't go back there. But it's a good place to live in general, and we're certainly going to try to make it better.
All right. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, I know how you feel. I grew up around here. I grew up over in Goshen, and I was bored to tears. And we used to hide behind bushes for 3 hours to wait for a car to come so we could throw a snowball at it. And you know, we don't have to wait as long anymore. So I envy you folks in that regard. But yeah, there isn't a heck of a lot to do around here, especially culturally. And if you do want to do something, you almost always have to have a car because there's no public transportation. And I can imagine a lot of you probably don't have a driver's license yet. So. It's frustrating. There's no public transportation. You can't just hop on a train and go somewhere the way you can in New York or Boston or other far-sighted progressive metropolitan areas that do have municipal public transportation infrastructure. So this is one of my top priorities, is to create a transportation infrastructure in this county so people could just get around. And I think, as is evidenced anywhere where you establish a railroad, I mean, look at New York City, for instance. I mean, Queens and the Bronx and Brooklyn didn't even exist until they introduced the L trains. And so once you create a public transportation grid, it just everything else seems to follow. And that, you know, whether that be a good economy or culture or the arts or just stuff to do, it all follows transportation. And without transportation, you're not going to have it. And I think that's one of the drawbacks in Orange County is there's no public transportation. You need a car to go anywhere, and so everything is really kind of decentralized. And I think that really needs to be addressed, and I regret that past administrations and political parties and individuals in this county have neglected that. At one time, we did have a major railway infrastructure in this county, and you could take trolleys and trains from one town to the other, and you didn't have to worry about getting pulled over by the cops and you know, breathalyzer tests and all that kind of stuff. You could just hop on a train and go. And that used to exist in this county, but somebody came along and decided that we didn't need it anymore because certain fat cats in General Motors and the oil industry decided they wanted to line their pockets. So they convinced local municipalities and cities all over the United States to rip up these railroads and replace them with General Motors diesel belching buses. And we don't even really have a bus system around here. I mean, if I want to go to New York City and see a band and stay out till 2 o'clock in the morning, the last bus leaves New York City at 12:30. So I can't even get back home. And, you know, if I decide I want to stay out late, if I don't know anybody in New York City where I could crash, I end up having to crash on a bench in Port Authority, and that probably doesn't look too good for my political career. So, sleeping on a bench in Port Authority. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I would say to you that, in fact, there is a lot to do. It's just that you're not doing it, and I wasn't doing it for years, you know. Political activism, now more than ever. Activism, you know, forget joining a political party. Join an activist movement. Get involved. You know, there's a lot of issues that you can champion, and it doesn't cost any money. And you could go to a demonstration and find a lot of other people your own age or older or whatever. You know, you find really quality people at these events. You know, people who care. And you know, if you want to meet a future spouse or a partner or something, that's the place to go, because these are the people who actually give a damn, who care, who actually go out and try to make a difference. And it doesn't cost any money. You know, it's better than going to a movie. Most of the movies you see over here at the Galleria movie theater stink, in my opinion. You know, we get to see maybe 1% and 1%. Well, hold on, let me finish. So my advice to you is, hey, if you can't find any other activist organization and you're bored with the Democrats and Republicans, come to the Green Party, because I mean, we just have tons of stuff for you folks to do. And I brought some literature. I see you got a lot of Michael Sussman stuff. If somebody wants to hand me that stuff, I can hand it to someone who'd be willing to hand it out to everybody. But we got tons of stuff. We have animal rights protests. We have anti-death penalty protests and demonstrations. We organize bus trips to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia and New York City. We do demonstrations around here. This is International Anti-McDonald's Month, and we're trying to organize anti-McDonald's protest. We usually do it over in Chester. So if you're bored and you ain't got nothing to do, create something to do. You know, decide which organization or business in Orange County you think is unethical and organize a demonstration, especially you folks, you know, high school students especially. That garbage gangsters and greed really rocked the very foundations of this county and the political machines here and outside of the county and the waste hauling industry. The fact that high school students got together and you know, created a voice for themselves and said something productive to try to change things for the better. If you're bored, it's only because you don't see what's right under your nose. And if you need help seeing that, just give me a call. My telephone number is on my literature. I'm more of a Green Party coordinator than anything else. You know, I'm only running for public office because nobody else would, and I just thought that was tragic, that there shouldn't be more choice on the ballot.
At this time, we'd like to take questions.
Okay.
Keep your responses brief.
Speaking of activist movements, how do you feel about the Masada Project? And I have another question stemming from your answer, but I'd like your reply first. Cool, either one.
Okay. I am generally supportive of the project and have studied the project and feel that it's an important project for the county. Let me explain briefly why. I'm not going to give answers that are as long as Don's, because I know many of you have questions, and I think I'd like to be able to address as many of the questions as you have. Basically, what we have in Orange County since stopping the landfill expansion in the early 1990s is that we've been exporting our garbage to Pennsylvania. We have a 20-year contract now to export our garbage, and we pay for the exportation of our garbage, $65 a ton. So when garbage is collected in Orange County, it's all sent to Pennsylvania. People in Pennsylvania at some time are going to say, what do we need Orange County's garbage for? I mean, they don't really like getting our garbage, and there are going to be people there rebelling against getting our garbage. So what I was looking for when I was on the Chester Town Board, and as I've continued active through the 90s, was a system that would be able, in fact, to recycle most of the waste that we create into a gas, recycle most of the waste that we create into a gas that's usable. Ethanol is a usable fuel. It's not something that simply is dissipated and wasted. You can reuse that gas. And at the same time, in that way, deal with most of our garbage stream. Now, I also advocate strongly recycling in the county. We have not done anything near what we could do with respect to recycling, and that's true. And Don has made that point, and it's true. Orange Environment, which I've represented over the years legally, has long advocated strong recycling programs. Right now, our county is doing very, very little. We have a recycling coordinator, but really, in many of the communities, it's underdone by probably 75% of what you could do in terms of recycling. But once we recycle, we're still going to have a stream of garbage. And I think it's moral to do something with that stream of garbage ourselves. So I support the activity of Masada.
Overall, I'm opposed to Masada, perhaps as an interim solution, just a real short-term solution, maybe 10 years maximum. But I just don't really see it addressing the problem at the source, and the source is the production of garbage, and we don't need to be producing all of this garbage. And my greatest concern is not even so much household garbage, but industrial waste that's ending up in this county, and that this county is also exporting outside of the county. And this, in my opinion, is what's really contaminating our water, our potential water resources, and giving people cancer and all of these crazy, nutty diseases that doctors don't seem to be able to really accurately say, well, exactly where it's coming from. But in my opinion, it's because we're turning this county into a toxic landfill, toxic waste dumping ground. And so the way I would address this issue is to hold corporations accountable for the garbage they produce. If Procter & Gamble wants to sell cookies in our grocery stores or cereal or whatever, then minimize the packaging. Be responsible about your packaging. Instead of having a box inside of, or a bag inside of another bag, inside of a box, inside of a plastic wrapper, you don't need all of that packaging. You could reduce that to maybe 1/4 of the packaging, and you can make that packaging out of biodegradable, environmentally friendly things like hemp, like the way they used to do. Almost all the paper in the world and all of blue jeans, this hat, everything was made out of hemp. Varnishes, paints, fuels. You can make ethanol out of hemp, and you don't have to chuck in sulfuric acid to compost garbage in order to do it. You just, it's the most environmentally friendly crop in the world and the strongest natural fiber known to man. So hold corporations accountable, whether that be industry or whether that be, say, Procter & Gamble in marketing. And if they want to bring garbage in here, make them accountable and responsible to take it back out with them. And all of a sudden, when they don't have a place to take it to, and all of the communities in solidarity refuse to accept garbage from everywhere, that's when the garbage issue is going to end. But as long as there's some schmuck county, the way Orange County has been historically, who's going to accept other people's garbage, and right now, if it's Pennsylvania that's taking our garbage, then they're schmucks. They shouldn't be taking it. And the best way to address this issue is just stop accepting other people's garbage and force corporations to stop making it.
The question I had starting off with that was more directed towards you, Mr. Sussman, was that you were talking about there's nothing to do inside Middletown, no places for us to go, but how many Masada plants or plants like this are there in the U.S.?
We know that there's no plant exactly like Masada.
So if there's not, then what if...
What does that prove? Hold on a moment. There's an issue of no plants like this, but there's always a first. The technology has been approved by the agencies that review and approve technologies like this. And the fact that there's no prior plant, to me, is not very significant. There's lots of things that haven't happened before that are good and have to happen.
I'm necessarily worried about my health conditions. What if I do choose to stay in Orange County? What if this plant does fail, and since there hasn't been a plant like this, how are you so sure that it's going to succeed without any health potential problems?
Well, let's go into your question. The way our system works is that there are various levels of review of any proposal, including Masada. Masada is not a proposal that just came out of the blue and the next day it's going to be approved. Masada is being studied for 5 and 6 years. Orange Environment, which is our county's major environmental group, has sent delegations down to Alabama and to Tennessee, where the facility has various precursors. And they have indicated to me, when I've spoken with them, that the processes are safe. The EPA and the DEC have done the same thing. There's a very concrete approval process. You know, every industrial process has byproducts and problems. It may be the Green Party's view that, well, we're going to go back somewhere 200 years. That's not my view. It's not my view at all. We all depend every single day in innumerable ways and all of the progress that has occurred technologically and industrial over the last 200 years. We're not suddenly going back to an agrarian culture and an agrarian society. That's not going to happen. What we have to do is choose the best technologies, allow those technologies to be placed appropriately, and I believe Masada is pretty well placed. People are yelling and screaming about where it's placed. It's not placed on top of a residential neighborhood. It is not. It's not placed on top of the Campbell
That's
Plaza.
not true, though.
It is
Not true. There's residential housing right across the road.
Millions, thousands of people could be affected by this.
By
And
what?
not just Orange
By
County,
what?
But what are the chemicals, like the ethanol? What if there's a tanker that's carrying this and it spills and there's a car accident?
There are tankers that go through Orange County full of chemicals every single day. And what we're doing now is we're moving large quantities, hundreds and hundreds of trucks of garbage every day to Pennsylvania. Are you concerned about that? Is Don concerned about that? He says there are schmuck counties, whatever that means, that are willing to take our garbage. We are producing an endless garbage stream. We're not taking account of that garbage. We're not doing anything ourselves with that garbage other than shipping it to a sister state. That's irresponsible. To say the technology is okay for 10 years, that's meaningless.
What about the employees that work there? Is their health guaranteed?
Nobody's health is guaranteed.
Well, now the concern that I think that everybody would have, what if it's their uncles or aunts or my father going to work in this plant and they can get hurt by that? I'm just saying. Well, what
There's a
if?
plan
There
called
could be
Revere.
lawsuits for that.
There may be potential lawsuits. There are potential lawsuits that, not only potential, as a lawyer I'll tell you there are lawsuits that derive from every place of work. That's part of life. If what you're looking for in any process is, give me a guarantee that no one will ever be hurt, no one will ever be, that's not the culture we live in. It's not our society.
I'm talking about a majority, a big majority.
A big majority what? I think what we need to do is shut down Indian Point, which is a nuclear power plant on the Hudson River on a fault line. In order to shut down Indian Point, we have to find other means of producing energy. To me, the main issue is risk. The risk of a nuclear power plant catastrophe and the consequences of that kind of risk, to me, are much more serious than the risk that you're speaking about. Much more serious. Catastrophic in nature.
At this time, you could accept other questions from others besides Sandy. Brian?
What do you two think about the judging of the PCBs?
Dredging.
Yeah. On the Hudson River.
I'm always in favor of holding corporations and people accountable for what they do. And General Electric polluted that river. General Electric, we bring good things to life. You know, the largest nuclear arms manufacturer in the world. General Electric polluted the Hudson River, one of our greatest natural resources in this county. There's a great thing to do in the summer. You can go water skiing and jet skiing in the Hudson River if it wasn't so polluted. Although I did for a couple summers. Maybe that's how I ended up here. But yeah, I think they should be held accountable, just like every corporation, just like I've been talking about so far. And the greatest concern, I think, with people is that they're going to dredge this stuff and it's just going to stir it up and it's going to